Melissa was 34 years old and had a very complicated relationship with mirrors. It wasn't that she avoided them completely. It was more subtle than that. She walked past quickly, glanced sideways, never straight on, never for too long, as if her reflection might confirm something she already suspected but hadn't had the courage to accept as truth. Since she was 16, when an aunt commented at the Sunday lunch table that she was getting too big to wear shorts, Melissa had learned that her body was public property, that anyone could weigh in, evaluate, suggest, that she should be grateful when someone said, "But you have such a pretty face," as if the rest needed an excuse. She grew up with that buried deep in her chest. As a teenager, while her friends tried on colorful clothes and laughed their way to school dances, Melissa chose black. Always black. "It's slimming," her mother would say with the best of intentions. Loose blouses. Dark pants. Nothing that drew attention. Nothing that made anyone look and think anything. Her wardrobe wasn't an expression of who she was. It was a survival strategy. In college, she had a boyfriend who one day, with no malice in his voice, asked if she didn't want to take better care of herself. She broke up with him 3 weeks later, but the words stayed. They stayed for years. They stayed even after she got married, had a daughter, built a career that made everyone who knew her proud. On the outside, Melissa was a put-together woman. Teacher, a present mother, a loyal friend. Everyone admired her. On the inside, she still heard that 16-year-old voice telling her that her body was too big to take up space. It was on an ordinary Thursday that everything started to change. She was at a clothing store with Ashley, her longtime friend who had that infuriatingly cheerful energy about shopping. Melissa walked in wearing that familiar posture, that invisible armor. Straight to the rack in the back where the larger sizes were. Without looking at the window displays. Without letting herself want anything. Then she saw the dress. It was red. Not a timid red, not a red that apologized for itself. It was a full, vivid red with a modest neckline and a flared skirt that stopped at the knee. It had embroidered flowers on the sleeve. It was beautiful in the way that only something made to be noticed can be. Her heart skipped. And right after came the other voice. The usual one. "That's not for you." She looked away. Kept walking. But Ashley had caught the hesitation, that tiny thing that lasts half a second on someone's face but that a real friend never lets slide. "You looked at that dress. I just thought it was pretty. Then tried on." "Ash, it's not for me." "Why not?" Melissa didn't answer. She didn't need to. Ashley already knew. They'd had this conversation in different forms for years. She took the dress off the hanger without asking anything else and pressed it into her friend's hands. Inside the fitting room, alone, Melissa stood holding the dress for a stretch of time she couldn't measure. Could have been 2 minutes. Could have been 10. She stared at the red fabric as if it were a piece of evidence she had to decide whether or not to accept. She put it on. And when she looked in the mirror, this time straight on, this time for long enough to truly see, she didn't know what to feel. The dress fit. Not just fit, it settled. The skirt swirled the right way, the neckline was exactly what it needed to be, the flowers on the sleeve fell in exactly the spot that would make any seamstress feel proud. She was beautiful. She was able to think that without irony, without an asterisk, without the but, and then she cried. There in the fitting room, in red, with flowers on her sleeve, Melissa cried in a way she couldn't stop. It wasn't sadness. It was that more complicated thing, that knot that lives beneath so many people's sternums and only loosens when we stop pretending it isn't there. How many years had she spent hiding inside clothes that weren't her? How many parties, how many birthdays, how many Sundays had she shown up dressed in invisibility because someone long ago had decided that a fat body shouldn't be seen? She stepped out of the fitting room with red eyes and the dress still on. Ashley looked at her and said nothing for a moment. Then she said everything in a single sentence. "That's how you should feel every time you look in the mirror." Melissa bought the dress. But the story doesn't end there because real life doesn't work that cleanly. The following week, she wore the red dress to a family barbecue. She walked into the backyard and noticed the stares. Some were admiring, which she didn't quite know how to receive. And one, just one, but enough, from a cousin who murmured to another, thinking she wouldn't hear. Bold choice, huh? It wasn't a compliment. Everyone in the backyard knew it wasn't a compliment. Melissa felt the red of the dress grow heavier for a few seconds. She felt that old urge to disappear, to leave, to never have tried. Her stomach tightened. Her throat closed up. But she stayed. She grabbed a plate, helped herself to food, sat with the people she loved, laughed at jokes, played with the kids, stayed until it was late. The dress stayed red the whole time. She stayed herself the whole time. And when she left, she hugged Ashley for a second longer than usual, and thought that maybe bold wasn't an insult after all. Maybe it was exactly what she was being. Have you ever lived a moment like this? That second before putting on something you really wanted but a voice inside your head said wasn't for you? That hesitation in front of the mirror, that silent canceling of yourself before anyone outside had the chance to do it? So you know exactly the weight Melissa carried. And you also know how much it truly costs to make the opposite choice. 'Cause it's not about clothes. It never was about clothes. It's about how much time we spend shrinking inside a smaller version of ourselves because the world decided there are bodies that deserve to be seen and bodies that should apologize for existing. It's about the voices we absorb when we're too young to have a filter and that stay there installed, repeating the same loop for decades. Melissa didn't become a different person after the red dress. She still has hard days. Still has mornings when the mirror feels like an enemy. Still has moments when someone's gaze cuts the wrong way and she feels that old retreat trying to happen. But she also has the red dress hanging in her closet now, among her other clothes, not hidden in the back, not saved for a special occasion that never comes. It hangs there in the middle of everything as a reminder. She bought other colorful things afterward. An orange blouse she never would have glanced at before. A printed skirt that makes a sound when she walks. A jacket that her 11-year-old daughter called amazing mom with that honest enthusiasm only a child has. Her daughter. That's perhaps the most important piece of all of this. Melissa thinks about her daughter a lot when she thinks about this story. She thinks about what she would have passed on if she had kept going the way she was. What kind of relationship with her own body the girl would have learned from watching her mother hide, shrink, apologize for existing at the size she exists. She doesn't want that. She wants her daughter to grow up believing that her body is a good place to live. That clothes are fun, not camouflage. That color exists to be worn. And sometimes the best thing we can do for others is to first do it for ourselves. Melissa still walks past mirrors. But now she stops. Looks straight on. Stays long enough to see a woman who decided to stop apologizing. And the red, when she wears it, sits exactly the way it was made to sit. Full. Vivid, needing no permission to exist.